Hello, welcome to Marine Gurukul video series. We are happy to present this video on star identification, which besides helping you in attempting the question in your examination, may also be very useful on board in case you need to identify a star. We start our discussion by understanding the term that is used to describe the brightness of a celestial body, and that is the apparent magnitude, which is measure of the brightness of a celestial body as observed in night sky from the earth. Why we are interested in the apparent magnitude and not maybe something called as absolute magnitude? Because we are interested in observing the body from the surface of the earth so that it can be used for taking observations. Now the apparent magnitude of a celestial body depends on its absolute magnitude, which is the measure of its brightness or luminosity, the distance of the celestial body from the earth, and also the transparency of the intervening medium, be it the atmosphere of the earth or be it the transparency of the space. The magnitude scale that we use is reverse logarithmic. That means it's not a linear scale, it's logarithmic. And reverse here means that lower the magnitude, brighter the object. We can calculate how many times a celestial body appears brighter than the other by using a simple relationship. Relative brightness is equal to 2.51 raised to power x, where x is the difference between the magnitudes of the two bodies, relative magnitude number of the two bodies. This means that if the difference between the relative magnitudes of the two bodies is 1, it means their brightness ratio is 1 is to 2.51. Why? Because it will be 2.51 raised to power 1. A magnitude 1 star is 100 times brighter than a magnitude 6 star. Why? If you put difference of 6 and 1, that is 5 in the formula, 2.51 raised to power 5 will be almost 100. Likewise, a star of magnitude 2 is 2.51 times brighter than the star of magnitude 3, and the star of magnitude 2 is 6.31 times brighter than a star of magnitude 4, that will be 2.51 raised to power 2. The faintest stars visible to the naked eye on a darkest night have an apparent magnitude of about 6 to 6.5, though this varies depending on the person's eyesight, star's altitude, and the atmospheric conditions. The apparent magnitudes of some of the brighter bodies used for celestial navigation are Sun minus 26.7, Moon minus 12.5, Venus minus 4.2, and Sirius minus 1.5, showing that brighter the object, lesser is the apparent magnitude number assigned to it. The measurement of apparent magnitude is called as photometry. What is the suitable time for stellar observations? Obviously, the suitable time shall be when the stars or the planets are visible in the sky, and so is the horizon of the observer. Why? Because the observations have to be made with respect to the observer's horizon. So obviously then, to meet both these conditions, the suitable time shall be a certain period before sunrise in the morning and a certain period after sunset in the evening. And this period is referred to as twilight. During the twilight, the atmosphere is partially illuminated by sun, being neither totally dark or completely lit. However, there are three categories of twilight that are defined by how far is the sun center below the horizon. And these three categories are civil twilight, nautical twilight, and the astronomical twilight. Let us understand a little more about the twilights through this diagram. In this diagram, the observer is at the center of the circle, and this diameter of the circle represents observer's horizon. The circle here represents the daily apparent path of the sun. We all know that Earth rotates from west to east, and therefore, because of this, the sun appears to be rising on the eastern horizon, moving across from east to west and setting on the western horizon. So in the morning, when the sun center is 18 degrees below the horizon of the observer, that is the beginning of what we call as the astronomical twilight. Now during this astronomical twilight, obviously, the practically all stars and planets are visible because it's reasonably dark. However, the horizon is not discernible because of the lack of light. And therefore, during this period, astronomical observations or the sights may not be possible because the horizon is not clearly visible. When the sun center reaches 12 degrees below the horizon, that is the time when nautical twilight starts. Now during nautical twilight, obviously the lighting has improved, so therefore the faint stars may not be visible, but the stars and planets that we use for navigation are all visible during the nautical twilight. And at the same time, because of improved lighting, now the horizon is also visible. Therefore, nautical twilight, as the name suggests, is the suitable period for taking star observations. Now, when the sun center reaches 6 degrees below the horizon, that is the beginning of the civil twilight. During civil twilight, only the bright or very bright stars and planets can be seen because the light has further improved. Horizon is not an issue because that becomes even more clear. So during the civil twilight period, yes, if the stars or planets are visible in the sky, they can be very conveniently used for taking observations. Now, though each of these twilights have begun at different timings, astronomical when 18 degrees below horizon, nautical when the center of the sun is 12 degrees below horizon, civil when the center of the sun is 6 degrees below horizon, but all the three twilights end when? They all end at visible sunrise. Please mark my words, visible sunrise. Now thereafter the sun is up and it's daylight for the observer. Sun apparently moves across the sky from east to west, and when it reaches the western horizon, it's time for the sun to set. Now, as the sun sets, all the three twilights begin. Civil, nautical, astronomical all begin. Now, when the sun center reaches 6 degrees below the horizon, it is end of civil twilight. When the sun center reaches 12 degrees below the horizon, that's the end of nautical twilight. And when the sun center reaches 18 degrees below the horizon, that is the end of astronomical twilight, and now you have the night or the hours of darkness. Now, which one is more, whether daylight hours are greater than hours of darkness or vice versa, will depend upon the latitude of the observer and the declination of the sun. Let us now familiarize ourselves with the pages of the nautical almanac that contain the star information. We have these two pages showing up on the screen. We have the first column of magnitude. Next one is the name and number of the star, so names and number of the star. And then we have this SHA and declination month-wise from January to June on the left page. And for the same set of stars on the right side page, the SHA and declination information is from July to December. Now, stars listed on these pages are listed in the increasing order of their SHA. So the SHA is increasing here and stars are listed in the increasing order of the SHA. 57 stars used for navigation are numbered. These 57 stars which are used for navigation have been numbered here separately. You can see some numbers against those stars. and the number of the star is decreasing as the SHA is increasing. Now on the left hand side and right hand side, it's the same set of stars, but you can see the names they appear to be different. Now the names on the left side are the Latin names for the star, and the names on the right side are the English names for the stars. Now here you see, this is the Latin name of this star, which is circled, Alpha Lyrae, which is star number 49 with a magnitude of 0.1. Now the same star, when seen on the right hand side, it's Vega. So therefore, Alpha Lyrae is the Latin name for Vega. When we give our answers, we'll be using the English names. Let's quickly revise the parts of the familiar PZX triangle. We all have seen this PZX triangle many a times, in which P represents the celestial pole, Z represents observer zenith, and X represents the celestial body. In this side PZ, which is arc of observer celestial meridian, is called as colet and is always equal to 90 minus latitude of the observer. Side PX in this, which is arc of the meridian of body X, is called as polar distance and is always equal to 90 plus minus declination. Side ZX, which is arc of observer's vertical circle passing through X, is called as true zenith distance and is equal to 90 minus true altitude. Angle P is called as R angle, and in this case, as the R angle of the body is measured eastwards of the observer, this R angle is called as EHA, that is easterly R angle. Angle Z has some relationship with azimuth. In this case, the azimuth will be measured clockwise from true north, and we see that in this particular triangle, yes, angle Z and azimuth are same. Just for your information, angle X is called as angle of position. If the parameters are changed, the orientation of the triangle shall change. Let's draw one more. The one coming up on the right side, getting labeled. All parts we are familiar with are getting labeled out in the diagram. What is the difference between these two triangles? Let us see the R angle. Here the R angle was EHA, as already said. Here the R angle of the body is westwards of the observer, and this R angle is called as LHA. So our angle P could sometimes be LHA, on other occasions it could be EHA. As far as angle Z is concerned, in this case it was equal to azimuth, but out here if we measure clockwise from north, this arc represents the azimuth of the body, whereas the internal angle of the triangle Z will be represented by this arc. So what do we see in this case? That angle Z is equal to 360 minus azimuth, or else azimuth is equal to 360 minus angle Z. So the important things here are, we'll have to determine whether P is EHA or LHA. We'll have to determine whether polar distance is 90 plus declination or 90 minus declination, and we'll have to establish the relationship between angle Z and azimuth. Let's quickly summarize how we would do that. Now, if the azimuth of the body is greater than 180 degrees, it means the body lies to the west of the observer, and if it lies to the west of the observer, obviously angle P would be equal to LHA. If the azimuth of the body is less than 180 degrees, that means the body lies to the east of the observer. In that case, angle P becomes easterly R angle, and if we are interested in LHA, then LHA will be then 360 degrees minus angle P. How do we decide on polar distance? Now, polar distance will be equal to 90 minus declination of the body if the latitude of the observer and declination of the body are same names. If they are opposite names, Px will be 90 plus declination. And lastly, let us see how azimuth gets linked to angle Z. We could have these four options, Azimuth may be equal to angle Z as in diagram to the left. Azimuth may be 360 degrees minus angle Z as in the diagram to the right. If we make the PZX triangle with the south pole, we could have the other two options also coming up, wherein azimuth may be 180 degrees minus angle Z, or azimuth may be 180 degrees plus angle Z. So based on the PZX triangle, we can decide as to what is the relationship between angle Z and the azimuth. And last thing, let's have a look at the cosine formula once again. Cosine formula we have used when we were doing the great circle sailing. So what is cosine formula? Cosine of any side of the spherical triangle is equal to cosine of the opposite angle multiplied by sine of the adjacent side 1 multiplied by the sine of the adjacent side 2 plus cosine of adjacent side 1 into cosine of adjacent side. We also need to quickly revise the concept of time and LHS star. We know longitude into time is 15 degrees of longitude is 1 hour of time. We should be able to convert GMT to LMT and or LMT to GMT, difference being LIT. Rhyme can come handy in deciding whether to add or subtract. Longitude east, GMT least, longitude west, GMT best. There could be a requirement to convert GMT to SMT, ship's mean time, or ship's mean time to GMT, difference between the two being the zone time. Again, longitude east, GMT least, longitude west, GMT best. And lastly, LHS star, which is equal to GHS star plus minus longitude, and GHS star is equal to GHA Aries plus SHS star. So LHS star becomes GHA Aries plus SHS star plus minus longitude, longitude east, GHA least, longitude west, GHA best. Now, of course, we need to know which star or planet have we observed to be able to use the observation for fixing our position. Now, normally the stars can be identified in clear sky by the other stars and the constellations in the background. So visually, you can identify the stars if the background stars and constellations are visible to you. However, there can be situations in which the bright stars may be visible, but not the background stars or the constellations. So in such cases, visual identification gets ruled out. So to identify stars in such cases, we use the method that we'll be discussing hereafter. And once the star is identified, it can be put to use for navigational purposes. Let us now list down steps that shall facilitate star identification through calculations. Now, first thing is based on the time, whatever is available to us, which could be LMT, SMT, or chronometer time, we need to convert that and obtain the GMT. Next is we need ship's position. As far as exams are concerned, this shall be part of the question. On board the ship, you can work out the EP or DR as applicable. Then we need to have the azimuth of the star, which shall be part of the question in exams. On board the ship, you can take the bearing of the star and that shall be the azimuth. We need to have the altitude of the star. It will be contained as a part of information in the question. On board the ship, you can make the observation by sextant. The altitude is to be corrected to true altitude, and then we need to get the TZD. TZD is equal to 90 minus true altitude. Now we draw an appropriate PZX triangle. Appropriate means that whatever parameters we have calculated, according to those parameters, we need to draw the PZX triangle. In the PZX triangle, we can mark off PZD, we can mark off the collat, and we can mark off angle Z. Now angle Z will depend on azimuth, and we have already seen in our discussion on PZX triangle how angle Z is related to azimuth. Using the GMT that we obtained, we calculate the LHA Aries, which will be equal to GHA Aries plus minus observer's longitude. Now we apply the cosine formula to calculate side PX of the PZX triangle, and that shall give us the polar distance of the body. Now, if PX is less than 90 degrees, then 90 minus PX named same as the latitude of the observer shall be the declination of the star. If Px is greater than 90, then Px minus 90 degrees named opposite to the latitude of the observer shall be the declination of the star. Using the Px calculated, we again apply the cosine formula and this time obtain angle P. Angle P shall give us LHA star. We now know that LHA star is equal to LHA Aries plus SHA star. LHA Aries has also been calculated. We have obtained LHA star and the difference shall give us SHA star. Having obtained SHA star and declination star, the star can be identified by going to the pages in the nautical almanac containing the star information. We now apply the steps that we just learned in solving a question taken from past MMD exams for Chief Mate Phase 1. On 15th June 1992, PM twilight on ship in position DR, latitude 36 degrees 10 minutes north, 47 degrees west, sextant altitude of unknown star bearing 227.75 degrees true was 61 degrees 2 minutes. Index error 0.5 minutes on the arc. Height of eye 6.5 meters. At GMT 22 hours 43 minutes 45 seconds. Identify the star. So based on information of observer's latitude, that means in the northern hemisphere, so we'll have the north pole in the PZX triangle and the azimuth of the body being more than 180, so body shall be to the west of observer. We make a PZX triangle. Now in this PZX triangle, we do not know whether PX is eventually going to be less than 90 or more than 90. Now we mark off whatever parts we can. PZ is equal to colat 90 minus DR lat. Angle P in this case, as and when calculated, would be directly LHA. Then we have the azimuth here. Azimuth would be clockwise from true north. So azimuth is 227.75 degrees out here. We can see angle Z will be then 360 minus azimuth. We get angle Z as 132.25 degrees. Now we correct the altitude and get the ZX side of the triangle. So the true altitude can be corrected using the sextant altitude. We apply the index error on the arc, subtract that. We get the observed altitude obtained from the altitude correction tables. Apparent altitude we get. We apply the total correction for the stars and that gives us the true altitude. When we subtract this true altitude from 90, it gives us the TZD. Now this TZD calculated here is transferred as side to side ZX of the triangle. So ZX is 29 degrees 03.5 minutes. Now we calculate and work out LHA Aries. Now fortunately we are given GMT, so no time correction is required. So we have the GMT known to us, 15th June 22 hours 43 minutes 45 seconds. We pick up DHA Aries for 15th day 22 hours from almanac. Increment from increment tables for 43 minutes 45 seconds. And this is the GHA Aries. To this we apply the observer's DR long and we'll get the LHA Aries longitude west, GHA best. So we subtract and we get the LHA Aries out here as 198 degrees 23.9 minutes. Now we apply the cosine formula to calculate side PX. We write the formula, put the value of all the known parts, and when we solve, we get PX as 75 degrees 23.5 minutes. Now as px is less than 90 degrees, so 90 minus px will be declination, and it shall be same name as latitude, which is north. So the declination shall be 14 degrees 36.5 minutes north. Value of px from here, we transfer it to the diagram. It comes up here. So declination star 14 degrees 36.5 minutes north. Now we apply the cosine formula once again for angle P. When we put the values, we get angle P as 21 degrees 48.6 minutes, which we can see in the diagram is equal to LHA. So now the LHA also is obtained. So this LHA calculated here goes up on the diagram. Now we know LHA star is equal to LHA Aries plus SHA of the star. Now we know the LHA star value calculated here. We know the LHA Aries calculated here. It shall give us the LHA SHA of the star. So SHA of the star then we get is 183 degrees 24.7 minutes. This gives us the LHA of the star. This way now we have calculated for the unknown star both declination and SHA. Declination is 14 degrees 36.5 minutes north. SHA is 183 degrees 24.7 minutes. We use these calculated values of SHA and declination to enter the star tables in the almanac. We know that these stars are listed in the ascending order of the SHA. We inspect these tables around 180 degrees SHA and we find a star out here whose SHA in the month of June and declination in the month of June is very close to what we have calculated. As this is the left page of the almanac, we look at the right page for the English name of the star, and the English name of the star is Denebola. From the nautical almanac, we find that in June 1992, Denebola's SHA is 182 degrees 49.6 minutes and the declination is north 14 degrees 36.8 minutes. Now these two values are very close to what we have calculated. So undoubtedly the unknown star happens to be Denebola. If you have access to star finder and identifier on board, you need not involve yourself with such extensive calculations for star identification. What you are seeing on the screen is picture of British Admiralty Star Finder and Identifier NP323. The star finder consists of a star chart for northern and southern hemisphere, 8 transparent templates, each template for a different latitude. The star chart shows 57 stars that were tabulated and numbered in the nautical almanac. From the template, you can read off the approximate altitude and azimuth of any selected star and thereafter use the information for site taking. Or you can identify a star for which you may be having the altitude and azimuth. The instructions provided with the identifier are explicit, detailed, and the chart is very user friendly. What you're seeing in this diagram, what is in the background, the white one with these black graduations and these stars printed on it, is what is the star chart. The transparency is the one which with these red or brownish markings on it. That is the transparency that they're talking about. So the transparency has to be used together with the chart. Now these days, besides the star finder and identifier that we are seeing on the screen, we also have the software programs wherein the data can be fed in and stars can be identified. So you can use a software if that is handy. You can use a star finder and identifier if handy. Else you can use the calculations that we have learned. With this, we come to end of this video on star identification. I hope you have found it useful. Please do subscribe to the channel, pass on to all your friends who may be needing it. Thank you very much for watching Marine Gurukul video series. Thank you very much.